If there's one thing that people often neglect, it's a very powerful force, but people often neglect this. And perhaps you're one of those people who could have fallen victim for this. Why? Because this force is very, very silent. It happens very gradual. It happens very slowly, but the results are exponential. And this law is what I class as the seventh law of the laws of productivity. And this law is the law of compounding interest. Hi there, my name is Jeffrey Sofo. I'm the founder of the Being the Best of You platform, and the vision behind this platform is to provide individuals like yourself resources that are centered around the 5 pillars that govern my life. One being the Christian faith, the family or your relationships, then finances, and then leadership and your personal development. If any of these things appeal to you, then I want to say welcome. You're welcome to the right channel, and let's grow together, and I'm sure you'll be grateful that you did. But back to the conversation. The law of compounding interest states that small actions that are done repeatedly or consistently over a long period of time would deliver remarkable results. As a matter of fact, when you come to consider it in finance, one will say that compounding interest is when interest gives birth to interest. In other words, growth gives birth to further depths of growth. And so you realize that the greatest advantage to anyone who is aware of this law is this thing called time. Time becomes your greatest asset when you understand the law of compounding interest. Why? Because when you take into account the potential that compounding interest has to offer, time begins to become your greatest ally. And so you realize that this same principle is not only applying to finance. Take, for example, every other aspect of your life. Your daily habits compound. Your skills compound. Your knowledge compounds. Even your relationship compounds. And so if you understand this concept of the law of compounding interest, I guarantee you, you are about to make the most of your life. Compounding is not just a motivational theory. It's a mathematical reality. And the reason why this is the case is simply, the longer compounding continues, the more great or the more exponential the result becomes. And so at first, it will start like small, insignificant efforts. But when you keep it up consistently over time, you begin to realize the greatest benefit that comes to accrue to you when you begin to understand this idea. Reading a book, for example, could seem very boring. But did you realize that, say, for example, a book that is 100 pages, if you choose to read that book, say, for example, 5 pages every day, just from Monday to Friday, you come to realize that by the time you come to Friday, you have read half of the page. So in 2 weeks, you have completed the book. The same applies with savings. You could start saving just £2 or £3 or $10. But the idea of it is not just about the amount that is being saved. It's about your commitment to making it a consistent habit. That's when compound or the law of compounding interest becomes your greatest advantage. Take, for example, 2 people. One starts saving money from the age of 20, and the idea is to save £200 or $200 every month, just for 10 years. And that person stops saving that money by the time they get to age 30. The second person starts saving money at the age of 30, but decides to save that same £200 or $200 every single month till they get to 60. Now, this is where it's going to blow your mind. Did you know that the person who only saved £200 from the age 20 to 30 has only saved £24,000 by the time they were 30 years of age? But guess what? By the time that person gets to age 60, that £24,000 that was saved when they were 30 years by just doing nothing and allowing it to accrue over time is already left with, by the time on their 60th birthday, they already have £760,000 or $760,000. Whereas the person who decided to save £200 every month from age 30 till their 60th birthday has only been able to save £298,000. What's the difference? Timing. So you understand that time becomes your greatest ally when it comes to this law of compounding interest. So even in your relationships, did you know that as a leader, your influence is not built overnight? Your influence is simply built on the tiny habits that you have been able to imbibe consistently over time. Take, for example, trust. When you keep to your word consistently over time, what that simply does is that it tells your team that this leader is someone that is to be trusted. Or take, for example, even your integrity as a person. When you begin to do things consistently over time, no matter how small, what that simply communicates to the team is that you are a credible person. So for that reason, you are worth following. And if there's anything that would guarantee a leader to be able to generate maximum results with the resources that are available to them, is your ability to galvanize influence amongst the people that you are leading. Or even in relationships, did you know, for those of us who are married, that the reason why the person that decided to marry you married you, all things being equal, was the fact that they had observed your habits, they have observed your behavior, and they have judged it to be consistent with who you project yourself to be. And so for that reason, they were willing to invest their life in deciding to spend their life with you. And why was that the case? Why? Because you kept on with a certain habit consistently over time. But unfortunately, there's a flip side to this law of compounding interest. As much as I have shared the good side, did you know that bad habits don't start overnight? It's simply tiny neglects that you have been able to do repeatedly that becomes a bad habit. So, for example, if you are consistent in telling lies, what that simply does is that over time, you have tricked yourself to even knowing what the truth is. It is easy for you to tell lies without even batting an eyelid. So again, that dilutes your influence, it dilutes your credibility. But also, even in finances, did you realize that one reckless spending here and there may not even cause any harm? But when you begin to spend recklessly over time, the law of compounding interest begin to work to your disadvantage. Why? Because any action you repeat over time eventually is going to determine or is going to generate exponential results, be it good or be it bad. And so very quickly, if you're one of those people who are saying, okay, fine, I understand what the law of compounding interest is all about, but tell me a little bit, how do I begin to make this work to my advantage? Well, perhaps this is why you need to listen. Simply because I've always believed in this principle. The day you come to the awareness of a truth is the day you can decide to take a different outcome for your life. And so very quickly, how do I take advantage of the law of compounding interest? Number one, start small, but start now. In other words, it's not about the amount of money that you're willing to save in terms of, oh, I want to save £1,000 a month. No, not necessarily. But the idea of it is make a decision to start today, but also be willing to start small. Because the idea of compounding interest is that you start with where you are, be committed to doing it over time, and then you would watch the results manifest eventually. Because don't forget, time becomes your greatest asset. So it could even be daily habits in terms of committing. Say, for example, your desire is to grow in knowledge. You commit to reading a chapter every single day. Guess what? Over a period of time, you would have finished a book. Perhaps it's about your health in terms of making healthier choices. Commit to cutting something small out of your diet. When you consistently do that over time, what simply happens is that you begin to reap the dividends of the law of compounding interest. And so the idea is to start small, but make sure you start now, because the day you wake up, or when you wake up, as they say, that's when your morning starts. Now that you're aware of this, make that decision to start now. Number two, guard your consistency jealously. In other words, anything that would compromise your ability or your willingness to be consistent, fight against it. Because remember, it's not just about time being your greatest asset, but what makes compounding interest work to your advantage is your willingness to commit to it consistently. I think I shared it in one of the laws when I was saying that when I made the decision to start content creation as a way of creating value for those who consider me an influence to their lives, I knew for a fact that if I don't commit consistently to it, then the value that I have to offer will eventually become diluted. And so I guarded the blocks of time that I've made out to be able to create content. Number 3, you must think long term. In other words, you must be willing to play the long game, because don't forget, as much as time is an advantage, the idea is that it becomes more advantageous the longer the time takes. And so don't be in a haste to see results. Because, for example, for someone who wants to lose weight, that you went to the gym and spent 5 hours in the gym for just one day does not mean that you will start seeing results instantaneously. The idea of it is to set out blocks of time that you're willing to commit to go into the gym to work out over a period of time. Then you would begin to see the result. And so the idea of it is not intensity but consistency, that you're committing to do something consistently and not just the intensity with which you do it is what guarantees this law to work to your advantage. And so for these last few sessions, I've been able to share the idea behind the vision, the law of vision, the law of the foundation, the law of capacity, the law of structure, the law of focus, the law of timing. But guess what? If you have all these things in place and the law of compounding interest is absent, perhaps the results that you're bound to see may not be what you have actually expected. And so if you found any of these pieces extremely beneficial, welcome on board, because the idea of it is to constantly supply you with the necessary resources that you need to transition from the version that you are now to the version that you eagerly be made manifest. Because I always tell people, the best gift you can give those who truly love you is not money. The best gift you can give those who love you is the best version of yourself. And this is what this platform is all about. Continue to provide you with the resources that you need to continue to evolve into that person that God has created you to be. So if you have found this helpful, please do well to like, subscribe, leave a comment on perhaps ideas that you believe that will be more beneficial or the things that you want me to talk about. And then I could take that into consideration as I create more content that is of value to you. But until next time, keep being the best of you, and God bless you.